This is where the psychologists and the measurement people disagree with one another. They get into all kinds of troubles. Kids who are operating out here are simply living a different life than these kids in the middle over here. They don't correspond. They're really different populations. The normal curve actually, in a sense, talks about 3 school populations in every classroom. This is where schools and measurement people always seem to divide. It's really quite a problem. It's really quite fascinating. I do this every day, practically, not quite, but almost. I'll write a bunch of tests from the school district, and I can see the reaction of the school district and how it's going to affect them, and I write a letter to go along with so that they will accept the fact that when they're looking for really high ability, they're looking for a very small number of kids. In a typical classroom, you get 2 or 3 kids here. 2 or 3 at the most. Well, the kids at both ends of the extreme are always, in a sense, victims of education rather than benefactors of education. The school is designed for that mid-hump, that great big bunch in the middle. And school is not designed for the gifted kids and is not designed for the special education kids. That's the problem. Enid, for many years, has taught high ability students in schools, mostly in New York. I taught very high ability students in California. IQ is an old measure which we have troubles with now, but the typical school measurement is based on a typical score right here of 100. The score that the greatest number of students is going to achieve is going to be a mid-range score of 100. If you take that mid-range level of students and you design curriculum for them, which you should because they're the vast majority of the kids in the school, then you in a sense, cut off these kids and you cut off these kids. One of the things that Mickey and Dwayne and I talked about all through the time that we were working on DBAE was this as a thread in the background behind what we were talking about and how we were operating. Because Mickey and Dwayne and I had all been on big curriculum development projects. And as such, we were very much sensitive to this problem of the distribution of abilities in a typical classroom. As you work on curriculum, you must always constantly keep this thread in the back of your head. And one of the things wrong with standards and with typical school curriculum is typical school curriculum does not account for the range of abilities in a typical classroom. It accounts for that mid-range group. Almost all curriculum decisions are made for this group. But one of the reasons we wrote this book is Enid and I are very sensitive, have been for years, to those kids who have special abilities, who show unusual abilities in art. It's really quite fascinating. I wish I could bring in a bunch and show you. I typically get from a school anywhere from 35 or 40, which would be a classroom, to maybe, I get a box this big and stacked full of test books. And inevitably, I can stack those out, and they're going to look like a normal distribution. The vast majority are going to be in the middle. Some are going to be above and below that. Some are going to be further above and below that. And some are going to be above and below that. When you get out here, you've got kids that are drawing with adult-level drawing ability. And it's really quite fascinating. And I can see this in every single grade. There are young kids who are drawing at a superb ability level in schools all across the country. But most of them are suffering because the curriculum makes no account for their abilities. It's really a problem.